Is this thing focusing? I think so. Alright, hello, welcome to my apartment. This is where I live now. I just very recently moved from UK back to Sweden because I love Sweden and I feel very Swedish. Actually, the first thing I did when I went to UK, the very first day, within 2 hours of landing and picking up my luggage, is go straight to IKEA and eat meatballs. That's pretty much how Swedish I am, even though I'm born in Romania. But that's a different story. So I moved back to Sweden. I am not ruling out the possibility I might be moving again. Who knows? I honestly don't know myself. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I know I'm going to be really frustrated with myself for recording this so late and then going to bed even later and having to be at the client to struggle with some really juicy Windows Forms code very early in the morning. But I had to share this with you and I thought I wanted to do a video because I gotta show you some cool stuff. Now what I want to talk about today is, ta-da, this thing here, the Microsoft Band. Now if you want to check it out, I'm sure you can find some really good videos on YouTube. That's not what I want to show you how it actually works. What happened today is that finally, officially, they released the SDK. Well, not today, it was yesterday, but I found out today, so for me it's today. And I'm really excited because I have been taking a little sneak peek at a WPF client which has the libraries, so you can see kind of how to play around with the sensors. And it's got a bunch of sensors. It's got accelerometer, it measures skin temperature, heart rate, and so many things. That means obviously we can make some pretty cool applications. Now, I don't have the time to walk you through making a very cool application, but I will show you something pretty neat and I will show you how to get this up and running, and hopefully you'll beat me to it and make a really cool application, share it with me, and then I don't have to do that work. Woohoo! I'm happy to pay for Windows Phone applications actually, so please don't be scared to charge. We can all, give a little bit of money to the dear app developers. Like me, right? Alright, so what we're gonna go through today is a scenario. Have you ever wondered if your arm is tilted? Probably not, but that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how to set up your very first project and we're going to play around with accelerometer. I'm going to omit error handling code and pretty much a lot of the best practices in coding just to keep this code really terse. So just keep that in mind and don't just copy and paste and think you got an application. Read up on the documentation, I'll make sure to provide some links for that. And have fun coding. Let's get started and let me show you the application, and for that let's focus on my hand. Alright, there we go. You can probably see the reflection of the camera and me standing behind it. This is the application we're gonna make. Oh dear, isn't that fantastic? Sorry, let's start this phone again. There we go. And here is the Microsoft Band. Now I made sure that it is paired and connected through Bluetooth to my band, and I'm just simply going to tap this first to get it started, and hopefully we should see it working. So as you can see, I've mapped the accelerometer to this image you see on the phone, so I can see how I'm actually turning or twisting my arm. I'm not quite sure what the right word is for it. Not super uber fantastic, but I don't know, maybe this could be beginning of a golf application, or I don't know, it's basically the beginning of your very first Microsoft Band application and you will take it from there. But yes, that is the demonstration and it can spin really fast. Woohoo, this is awesome. Actually, I was really excited when I did this, and now looking at it, I'm not sure if it's a little bit silly. Well, actually, I will stick to it being really exciting, and I am going to stop saying actually, which is very Swedish of me. But then again, I did say I'm very Swedish. Alright, let's have a look at some code. Woohoo! Let's get started. So we are in Visual Studio. You can also use Visual Studio Community Edition. I'm using the full version. I think I have Ultimate. Yes, I do have Ultimate, I believe. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create a new project. I'm sure you're not surprised by that. And I'm just going to create a blank app, Windows Phone. The top one here is going to be a Windows runtime phone application, just so you know. And let's just call this MS Band Delete Me. because I have to delete this later on. I also got to make sure I actually go and swap over to Swedish because the keyboard layout is US. And I'm going to go ahead and select OK. So the first thing we need to do is obviously make sure that we get the libraries to access our Microsoft Band sensors. So the way we're going to do that is go ahead and use the Package Manager console. If you haven't used it before, it's under Tools, and you get Package Manager, and you get, Package Manager console. Whew, a lot of talking, and it's very late. So what we need to type to make sure that we actually grab the package is install package microsoft.band and then pre, because it's a preview. And since we only have one project here, we don't need to select the default project. I'm going to hit enter and just let it go ahead and grab everything we need. And soon we will have it. While I'm waiting, I'm just going to let ReSharper clean up here a little bit of the things I don't need. Neat little tool, which I probably don't use to its full capability. First thing I do, I just gotta kind of remove some of the things in here because it gets a bit messy. I'll make sure to put the code somewhere where you can get a hold of it. This is the view we're going to be working with, and obviously we need to add in a hand. And the hand I've actually grabbed from Syncfusion Metro Studio, which is free, and it's a library full of icons. And this is the hand I decided on using. And you can also grab the code as XAML, and I know this looks pretty nasty, but you can just collapse it or put it somewhere as a resource, as a button or an SVG if you want to. Of course, you can export it as a PNG, JPEG, or whatever you want, or just save it as a Metro Studio icon. So I've decided on using this because when you have the XAML, it's quite easy to manipulate and add some animations and so on. We're not going to add animations, but we are going to map the movements from the y-axis on the accelerometer on the band to the y rotation plane on this image, the hand. So in Visual Studio here, I am just going to remove the grid, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to paste in some XAML I wrote earlier using that image I showed you of the hand, and I've just modified it a little bit, and I'll show you what I did. First of all, I'm going to hook this up to an event handler on tapped for the tapped event, and the view box, which lets me scale the path nicely up and down. And actually this grid is completely redundant, so I'm going to remove that as well. So I'm going to be able to access the view box through the XName attribute here, which I've set to hand. Usually you want to use a nice design pattern such as MVVM or similar, but since this is a very simple demonstration, I'm just going to use the much dreaded code behind, which you're supposed to never do, but I don't know, that's a discussion on its own. I've also set the view box projection to rotation Y, and that's actually supposed to be 0 and not 1. And this is what we're going to manage. So if I was to set this to 45 degrees, you're going to see it's going to tilt, and that's how I'm going to handle it. However, the data we get from the Microsoft band is actually going to be normalized. So it's going to be between -1 and +1, I guess, will be without the plus, but you understand what I mean. So we need to map that to degrees to be able to have a nice little rotation of the hand. Alright, not that interesting. On the references, now that the Package Manager console has finished pulling down what we need, we're going to see the stuff here. And I'm going to go ahead and just create the event handler for this. And before I do that, I'm going to remove all this extra code I don't need, which just kind of messes up things a little bit. I tend to do this always because otherwise it becomes difficult to see what you're actually doing. Okie dokie, now I'm gonna let ReSharper create the event handler for me, and I have here the event handler on tapped. And inside here we're going to add some code. However, before we do that, we need to change our manifest file. So the first thing we need to do is go under capabilities and add proximity, because we're going to need this to be able to use Bluetooth. And after we save it, and I'm going to close it down, we need to open it again, and we're going to open this with an XML editor because we need to add something manually here. So what we need to add is this part here. Now it's not 100% that it's going to be added for you, so you want to double check that this actually has been added, and of course you do not need the comments. It has been added for us, probably was added when we used the package manager console, but I did have an application where this wasn't added and I had to do it manually. So it's just very good to know. So after double checking that, I'm just going to go ahead and close that down, and I'm going to try to compile the application to double check that everything is working as expected. And indeed it does. We have a build succeeded. Let's move on to actually start working with the sensors in the band. So the first thing we're going to do is actually go ahead and grab the actual band client manager, as it's called. And because I have ReSharper, it very kindly suggests that I import the namespace, and I'm going to add an async here so I can actually await this asynchronous method here, get bands async. Now the using statement you need to add up here is using Microsoft Band, and I also know that we need to add using Microsoft Band.sensors as well, so I might as well add it there right now. You can't see it very well, it's grayed out because I'm not using it quite yet. Since we might end up in a situation where we can't connect to any bands, I'm just going to add a try catch here, and I'm going to add an exception, and just for now I'm just going to write to debug write line, and I'm just going to write out the exception message in case we get one. And not supposed to add a for there. Inside the try catch we can finally start doing some fun things. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab a band client, and we're going to go through the different devices that are there. You know, get bands async, it's going to give us several, and we want to go ahead and actually just grab one of them. And this is where it's going to throw an exception in case you didn't manage to connect, just so you know. And there are some band-specific exceptions that you can use, and you can find those in the documentation, but I'm going to skip that for now and save it for a longer video where I'm going to give you all the details around that. So once we have that, we can go ahead and start pulling out some data. So if I go ahead and just grab the band client, you can see here we have a few things we can use, and it makes sense to me to go ahead and use the sensor manager, and I do want to use accelerometer. How did you know that? Wow! And I'm going to go ahead and set reporting interval. This is how often I basically want to get a reading. And now there are set intervals you can set them to, and you probably should check which ones those are. I happen to know that this will work, but to actually grab the reporting interval, you can use the supported reporting intervals, and that's going to return an IEnumerable of the type time span, and you can see the different ones. But not going to do that for now. I'm just going to stick to this. And I mean, if you were to change this to 15, it's going to blow up. So yeah, that's how you do that. And the next thing we're going to do is me copying this here, because I know that's where we need to grab something more. Maybe you saw it earlier, we have a ReadingChanged Event, and obviously that's what we want to listen to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm just going to do this here in line basically. Of course you can pull this out and it'll probably look a little bit more neater. And while I'm at it, let me unpin those so you can actually see what I'm doing. I hope the font size is big enough for you. Inside here we can go ahead and grab some data. So if I was to look at the arguments, I can get my sensor reading. Ooh, that's exciting. And inside it I can get my acceleration Y, which is even more exciting because that's exactly what I wanted. And I'm going to get this pretty frequent, so this is going to be very resource intensive. And as you can see, since I'm actually wiring up here to an event, you might want to unwire at some time as well, but as I said, I'm kind of skipping the whole error handling for now for this simple demonstration. So I've got this, and I'm going to use this for something. I'm just cheekily just going to call it Y reading. Yeah, why reading? Why not reading? Why? So I have that information. The next thing I need to do is go ahead and calculate the actual rotation. And the rotation is going to be y reading multiplied by 90. That's going to give us, going to translate our reading into degrees of rotation that we can use with the image. We're not quite done yet because we have the information here. However, if we were to go ahead and do stuff on the UI thread, you know, that's going to blow up because you don't want to touch the UI thread. That's just not going to work. So we need to make sure that we dispatch this to the right thread. Now I'm just going to copy and paste in the code that we need for that because it's a lot of code for me to memorize. No, I'm just kidding, but it's just simpler. And I'm using the core application, main view, core window, dispatcher, run asynchronously. I'm setting the core dispatcher priority to normal, and that's good enough for us. And I'm just going to go ahead and just push this in a little bit. So inside here we can go ahead and we can grab the hand, which was a view box, and that's what we wrapped our path inside in. That's what we wrapped the path with. Sorry, it's really late. And then I'm going to grab the projection and we are going to set the value. And what we're going to set, we need to grab something with plane, what's it called in? Plane projection, that's it. And I'm going to look for Y because we need to set the rotation Y property. And that's going to be the second parameter on the set value. And the value we're going to pass in is going to be rotation, which is what we calculated up there. Woohoo! Alright, so we've got that in place. However, as you might guess, we are missing a line of code. Could you think of what that might be? Well, we are missing actually making sure that we kind of kickstart this whole thing listening to the accelerometer. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the band client, and I'm going to use the sensor manager, accelerometer, and I'm going to use this one, start reading async. And as you can see, there is also a stop reading async. So at some point you probably want to stop listening or reading, and that's when you use that. So I'm going to add that here, and I'll just add an await there. And so of course it's complaining. I'm going to let ReSharper help me out there, and then that's done. And that's actually all we need to add. I can't run this in the emulator because it doesn't support Bluetooth yet, or maybe will never, I'm not sure. If you know how to fix that, please let me know. However, you can just go ahead and plug in your phone, and hopefully you have already registered it as a developer device, and switch this to device, run it on your phone, and it should work quite nicely. And that's all you need. So if I was to zoom out here, it's not a lot of code to kind of get started. But of course you need to kind of handle this a little bit more nicely than just chuck it in the code behind with nice little async voids a little bit here and there on SurvItem. But I hope this provided you some excitement about all the things that you can create, and hopefully makes you want to go ahead and do those things. Now, I did promise you one more thing. I promised you to show you where the documentation is, and I'm going to show that now. So if you go to the my throat, I probably should cut that out. If you go to developer.microsoftband.com, you will find plenty of information as well as sample code. And you also can find the documentation, which is a fantastic PDF, and I've read bits and pieces of it, and it's well written, and I'm sure they're going to add more to the documentation as you know, as people start using this a little bit more. You also have some design guidelines and some release notes, and I know we haven't covered how to actually push data to the band. We're going to talk about that as well, and creating a tile and things like that. So stay tuned for more videos. It's not going to be this week because I'm going to the Pluralsight Authors Summit in Utah on Thursday, and it's a very long flight for me. It's about 23 hours one way. I'm going to be there 2 days and then fly back, so I'm going to be really tired. But next week I promise I'll make another video and I'll show you some more cool things in the SDK. So make sure that you let me know if you create any cool applications or if you have any ideas that I can steal from you. Let me know. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day.